Hey, this is Scott Smith from COBRA Firing Systems.
Hi, and I'm Will Harvey from Finale Fireworks.
Great, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Today we're going to be covering really the concept of what's called tracks within Finale. So what is a track? Well, let's say that you have a specific event, such as a football game or a sporting event, where throughout that event, there's different, almost like mini scripts that you may want to execute depending on what has occurred. So for example, if there's a touchdown, you may have a certain type of effect or little sequence that you want to run. Perhaps at halftime, there's something else that you're going to run, or even when the game is over, there's a different type of effect or sequence that you're going to fire. So you almost have these kind of little mini scripts that you're creating. So within Finale, what you can actually do is you can assign each of these mini scripts a track number, right? And then once you export that script into the 18R2, within the 18R2, each of those tracks actually corresponds to a specific button on the controller. So for example, if you want to fire track 1, you're going to press 1. If you want to fire track 2, you can press 2. And you can really do these in any sequence that you want. So you're not limited to doing them sequentially. You can bounce around as needed based on the demands of the performance of the event that you're at. So I'm going to go over and hand this over to Will. Why don't you go ahead and show us how to do this in Finale?
All right, great. Well, let's create a couple of tracks first. I'm going to go up here to the effect palette and insert one effect into each position, and then put that into a sequence going left to right. And we'll call that our first track. Maybe that's a touchdown, okay? So now I'm going to copy and paste it to create a second track for purpose of this example. We have a first track here on the left and a second track here on the right. Just to make them different, let's make the second track go in the opposite direction. So I'll reorder it and reverse the order. Okay, so take a look. A first track going left to right. Second track going right to left. And of course, we could make as many tracks as we want, but for this example, we'll just make 2 tracks, and we'll assign them to be 2 of the buttons on the COBRA controller. Well, at the moment, even though in our mind we know that we've designed 2 tracks, we still haven't specified that in the script or indicated what button on the controller it is that they correspond to. To do that, we go over to the blue gear menu at the upper right of the script window and select unhide a column because it's not there by default to make things simple. And we unhide the track column. Okay, here it is. There's the track column. It's blank right now. Okay, so I'll select, it's the first 9 shots that are going to be in the first track. We'll bind those to button 1 on the COBRA. So I'll just type in 1 here and then fill this down to the first 9 shots. And then we'll make the next one button 2. And fill this down to the next 9 shots. And now we've got track 1 and track 2. We're ready to address the show, which will fill in the rail and pin columns with the channel and queue numbers on the COBRA system. The terminology is a little bit different. Rail and pin means channel and queue. Okay, we go up to the address show function, select COBRA, and now here we've got a bunch of options. Scott, can you tell a quick explanation of which option to pick for a football game or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this situation, we are using the timed event component. So each of these sequences does respect time, kind of like a stopwatch starting and going, and then different events firing at different times. And for that, we refer to that as really more of a standard script, okay? So, but since we're using tracks, you'll notice, and Will, you can point out the third option down. And again, make sure to refer to your firmware version. So when you turn on your controller, you'll notice here that we're going to choose 5.0, but that may be different for you. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and choose separate scripts by tracks. So it's basically standard scripts, but they're going to be broken out by tracks.
Okay, we select that, click enter. The addressing function gives us a summary of the number of modules required. We have 9 positions, so it's not surprising we've got 1 module for each position. And we have a total of 18 shots, so it's not surprising that we're using a total of 18 pins or queues. over here in the script, the rail and pin column, which used to be empty, are now filled in. That was basically the purpose of the address show function. Having done that, we can finally export the script for COBRA by the menu item File, Export, Export Firing System Script. Scott, I'm looking at a thumb drive here. Is that the right thing to do? Can you pick up and tell people what to do from here?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we covered in a different video, all you're going to do is type in the word COBRA within the file name. We're going to save this right onto the thumb drive itself. So why don't you go ahead and save that file well. And at this point, the file's on the thumb drive. We're going to take that thumb drive, place it into the 18R2, power on the 18R2 to load that script. And again, we cover that in a separate video. However, for the purposes of this demo, let's go ahead and open up that COBRA file. So normally you're not going to open up this file, but just to give us a little bit more detail here, what you'll notice is that we actually have two scripts within one file. So you'll notice on row 2, that is our trigger channel of 0 and our trigger button of 1. So when you are when you've armed the 18R2, you're going to go to channel 0 and press 1 to fire this script. So you'll see our simple sequence that Will has created. And you'll also notice at the bottom of this file, you'll see track 2. And really, it's a very similar script, but the only difference, outside of firing different cues, is the fact that we have button number 2 on channel 0. So when we've armed our 18R2, we have the choice of either firing track 1 by pressing 1, or we can fire track 2 by pressing 2. So it's really that simple. All right, I'll hand it back to you, Will.
All right, I was just noticing here, Scott, remember we made the two tracks. One was a sequence from left to right, and the other was right to left. You can kind of see this, just eyeballing the script here, that the channel numbers correspond to the modules or the positions. And the first one is going from 0 to 8, and the second one is going back down from 8 to 0. So if you eyeball the script and it corresponds to what you're expecting, it's comforting to know.
Yeah, no, that looks really cool. And the other thing to mention is there are, depending on the firmware, there are certain limitations to this. However, we put a link in the description below that will take you right to a little bit more detail as far as what those limitations are and if they actually impact you.
All right, terrific. I think everyone's now set for making a show for a sports event or something where you have different sequences that you want to trigger with specific buttons on the COBRA.
Great, sounds great. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video. Take care.